Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The idea of astronomy is something that's been around since the year 1000 BC. As a result, humans over the last 3,000 years have become enamoured with the idea of what is beyond the walls of Earth. Particularly over the last century, humans have made huge strides in exploring space. The Apollo missions of the 20th century were huge steps in advancing our civilization here on Earth. More recently, research into Mars has revealed promising news that we could be able to transform Mars into a habitable environment and act as a second home for humans. With an unknown number of stars and planets out there in the universe, it is truly hard to comprehend how small we are. That is why, for too many humans, the idea of space exploration is simply inconceivable. It is something only a very small amount of people will ever experience. Fascination so many of us have for space is the reason why we're all so hyped for a game that was revealed in December 2013 at the VGX Awards. Trailer appeared and it began to showcase a game with every planet procedural, a game with every galaxy procedural, a game with the universe procedural. These were monumental claims of a so-called infinite universe. The trailer went on and continued to run its course. It showcased fantastical planets that one could only begin to imagine the secrets it had hiding away. Every planet was enhanced by the beautiful art style used in the game. This idea of having your own spaceship, being able to travel wherever you wanted, was quite simply unheard of in the gaming space. The sheer level of detail presented was simply outstanding. By all means, this game really did seem too good to be true, but as the trailer neared its end, we could not help but wonder, what if? What if they actually pulled this off? And then, it was announced. The game that would answer all our space exploration dreams would be No Man's Sky. Time would go on, and more began to be revealed and feed the growing hype. Interviews would reveal more gameplay and showcase the detail of these worlds. People would simply ignore the red flags. Yes, the company was small and independent, so they were only showcasing certain areas of the game, but look what we had been promised, gamers would say at the time. The small team continued to assure us our lofty expectations would be met, and we would have long interviews with developers themselves discussing how they are managing this hype. Throughout all this, however, what we thought were truths meant to hype the game were simply lies and misinformation, as we would find out much later on.
Now I have to review it in its current state, and in this release state, blemishes and all. The final verdict for No Man's Sky is quite possibly the most painful 5 out of 10 I've ever had to give. It's average, it does half of everything right.
I'm kind of happy I'm in this position because some people's perception could be kind of clouded by massive expectations and the hopes and dreams of what this game could be.
On the 9th of August 2016, it would finally arrive. No Man's Sky officially released to the public. Could it meet the expectation? The short answer is no. Initial impressions at the time, from most people, told a tale of a game with an excellent start, but quickly tailed off after around 8 hours of gameplay. Despite this, however, most reviews would point to the fact the game had huge potential. However, in modern gaming, first impressions are everything, and it quite simply didn't provide the experience necessary to keep these players interested, so many dropped No Man's Sky early on. The players who continued to play, however, would uncover something even more dark. The truths the game was really hiding, and would begin to expose the lies told by the developers. Here is a quick rundown of some of the lies told by the developers and how it actually turned out in the game. The developers stated before release that ships would be extremely varied and creative in design, but in reality, this was an area where the game lacked. The faction system was also a mess at launch and was really not as promised. And finally, the universe realism. The developers stated that the world would go on forever and you could theoretically fly and continue to keep going in one direction. This would therefore allow the player to potentially reach the next solar system by just flying in one direction. However, this was a complete lie and was not in the final release. For more about the lies of No Man's Sky before release, I would totally recommend you check out Solo Jones's video on this topic. In that video, all the lies told by the developers are shown off. The worst lie of them all, however, would lead to some larger issues because of the scale of the feature. The developers always stated that if you could somehow find someone in the large universe, then you would theoretically be able to see them.
Could encounter other players. The reality is, the likelihood of that is tiny, basically.
You know, it is possible, but it's something that it's not core to the game.
Can you run into other people, other players on the game?
Yes, but the chances of that are incredibly rare, just because of the size of what we're building.
There is the ability to communicate and work with other people, but if you want to, I won't go into loads of the details.
Today on PS4, and one of the biggest questions still unanswered is how its mysterious multiplayer functionality works. Two players have already managed to dispel a little of that mystery though, as they managed to find the same planet and attempted to meet up. My name is Alex Newhouse, and if you were hoping you can meet up with a buddy in No Man's Sky, I have some bad news for you. As reported by Kotaku, the players, who go by the Sad Cactus and Shadowcat, could not see each other even though they coordinated to make sure they were in the same place.
You serious?
You see, the issue with all these lies is that people got so overly hyped for the game. This obviously would have boosted sales initially, but so many players felt lied to and simply saw the game as a laughingstock afterwards.
A bad feeling about this.
This created a stigma surrounding the game, where it was seen as a failure and put Hello Games at the lowest point they could have been at after release. The only positive here is that there was a good base for a game, and once you are at this much of a low, the only way is up.
The original relaxed voyage, whilst creative, allows exploration and creation freely and without limits. A new survival experience will test travelers' endurance to their limits.
And so, work would begin to repair this mess. In November 2016, just 3 months after launch, the Foundations update would release. This brought notable features such as claiming planets as your home and base building, also alongside a number of smaller quality features. This was a good start, and it showed the desire of Hello Games to make things right. Next was the Pathfinder update in early 2017. This saw its main feature be the introduction of vehicles. This was once again alongside the introduction of many smaller features, and these were beginning to add up and were fixing a larger puzzle. As the game reached its 1-year anniversary, the Atlas Rises update would come out. This would completely overhaul the storyline and improve other key aspects of the game, such as trading and the in-game economy. At this point in August 2017, the game was silently thriving and had a passionate community that were receiving regular updates. It truly was becoming an exciting time to be a No Man's Sky fan. Hello Games were not done, however, and this was only just the start in their long-term vision for the game. Because despite all this, you see, there was still a large chunk of people who saw this game simply as a joke, including myself. Hello Games therefore set out to continue to improve their creation and try and slowly turn the heads of those who pushed it away just a year ago. We would therefore have to wait until July 2018 until the next major update for the game came out. No Man's Sky Next arrived and did exactly what the title said. It moved the game into the next era and corrected many lies that were told by the developers. Key of which was finally adding full multiplayer into the game. This was huge for many. Now people could finally try it with their friends and then decide whether it was a game worth playing going forward. The next update also brought other additions, such as some visual changes and a third-person mode, which really changed the way the game could be played. Later that year, another update would be released. This was called the Abyss Update. This would explore the game's oceans, which hadn't actually been expanded upon during the time the game had been out. This would add new sea creatures, alongside visual improvements and most importantly, underwater base building. At this point, the game really began to excite me and finally caught my attention. I also believe many others at this point were the same. Despite my initial distaste at the launch, the game finally started to look very exciting from an outside perspective, and I therefore began to watch the game very closely to see what Hello Games could do in the future to improve it further. Just a month after the Abyss update, we would receive the Visions update. This focused more on the planets themselves and improved the ones that generate to create a more varied experience. This therefore makes the player want to play for longer, as they might want to find the new things hidden on the planets. It's also important to mention that in mid-2018, we would finally see the release of the game on Xbox. This would open the doors to so many more potential players who were unable to play it when the game was exclusive to PlayStation. Moving into 2019, and we would see the No Man's Sky Beyond update. This would see improvements to base building and some new NPCs, as long as the Space Anomaly Nexus, which would act as a hub. Finally in 2019, the Synthesis update would be released. This would tweak some aspects of the game, and add things such as the ability to upgrade or salvage starships. Next we move on to the year 2020. I truly believe this to be the most important year for No Man's Sky. These were the updates that finally made me play the game, after 4 years of waiting for them to finally make the game simply what I always wanted it to be. In February of that year, we would have the Living Ship update, which would bring more variety in terms of ships. And then in April, just 2 months after, we'd have the Exo Mech update. This would bring the Minotaur, which was a large new mech that you could craft and summon to traverse or shelter yourself from hazards. Next, we would receive crossplay, which is such an important part in modern gaming, ensuring players on all platforms can play with each other, and made sure friends from any of these platforms could stay playing with each other and really increase the player base for the game. The game was also added to Xbox Game Pass around this time, and this was the time where I picked up the game. At the time I wasn't aware of truly how much this game had been updated. It was a nice surprise when I began to play and found myself playing for hours on end. This is something I just simply didn't expect to happen back in 2016 when the game released. The first update I would experience as a No Man's Sky player was the Desolation update. This added some desolate freighters and some long abandoned vessels to the environments. You could find these in space and explore the wrecks. In September, the Origins update would then release, which brought some dramatic change to the game. New planet types, varied terrain, and even more landscapes, as well as weather and planetary conditions, colossal buildings, and so much more. There were so many improvements in this update that really made the game reach the next level. New hazards such as volcanoes, tornadoes, and meteors really brought danger to each planet, which was something we hadn't really seen before. Perhaps the most exciting part of the update, which was shown in the trailer, was the giant sandworms that could be found on some planets. These are absolutely terrifying when you see them in game. In late 2020, the game would be added to next gen with 4K 60 FPS on these consoles. This would have massive improvements to the game in terms of graphics and how smooth the game ran, alongside some smaller changes such as having the ability to have more players in multiplayer. As we moved away from 2020, we moved into 2021, which saw the introduction of expeditions. These acted as timed events that you could go on with friends to follow a path through various missions. Completing this would give you exclusive rewards and items. The Prisms update was next, and mainly improved on visuals, including the lighting, another update which clearly had the long-term future of the game in mind. September 2021 would see the introduction of the Frontiers update, which would bring planetary settlements, which were basically towns that could be randomly found on planets, which you could become the leader of. Moving into 2022, and the Sentinels, who are the main enemy in the game, would finally have their first overhaul. There was improved combat and new types of Sentinels to really freshen up the gameplay. Next we would see the introduction of No Man's Sky Outlaws. This saw the introduction of improved space combat and some outlaw stations in some solar systems. The most recent update, as I'm making this video, was the Endurance update. This allowed you to expand your capital ship and brought more varied freighter base building. The updates I've gone over in this section should highlight the passion Hello Games had in ensuring they met their original vision. They easily just could have taken the money they received from early hype and moved on. Instead, however, they've used their resources to create something that I now consider to be better than what was shown to us in them original trailers all them years ago. The current state of the game is simply incredible. You start much like you always have done, on a random planet, with the sole purpose of repairing a ship and getting off that planet. Once you've done this, and take off with your ship, the awe-inspiring scale of No Man's Sky becomes apparent as you enter the skies and begin to see the planets of which you can travel to and are most likely unexplored. Once you're out of your first solar system, the player is free to pretty much do whatever they want, follow the 30-hour storyline, or even spend hours searching for a paradise planet to build your base. The choice is down to what the player wants. As you progress more into the game, you begin to realise the detail created. Maybe it's the trading system and in-game economy that caught your attention, but for me, it was the variety in planets. On my main save, I'm around 30 hours deep into the game, and I'm still finding unique planets. Some I land on, I take a few minutes to take in the surroundings, and some feel so outer-worldly that it takes time to process what I'm truly looking at. Either way, I have spent countless hours searching for different types of planets, and even longer searching for a planet to call home and build my base. That is the largest compliment I can give the game. The fact I am willing to spend hours exploring really proves the depth that Hello Games have created. The only flaws I found in my experience were some small performance issues on last-gen consoles. This was only on certain planets, but it was quite bad and made the game very frustrating to play. But since I've switched to next-gen consoles, I have not experienced any performance issues. The game overall is pretty chill to play. The average difficulty isn't too hard, and the enemies aren't tough to fight. I would compare the experience to that of Minecraft. A very relaxed experience where adventure and fun is the main theme. However, difficulty can be added if the player is looking for that extra challenge. If you are looking for an adventure game or a mini survival game to play, then I could not recommend No Man's Sky enough. Even if these games are not your style, I would urge anyone who may have wrote the game off all those years ago to just give it a chance. It is the shining example of why some developers just need a bit more time to make things right, because make things right they certainly have. I was one of the many players who saw the game as nothing more than a joke when it was released in 2016, and by all means, it was. You would be correct in saying that it is unacceptable to release a game in an unfinished state, and Hello Games, they were unacceptable. They were wrong to lie to us, but looking back, I don't think it was with any malicious intent. I simply think they were too ambitious for the time, and needed a lot more in order to make their dream a reality. Given the time and resources, however, they have been able to make their dream a reality, and have made No Man's Sky the ultimate space exploration game. It is for that reason why I now give No Man's Sky an 85 out of 100 score. It simply provides the ultimate experience for exploration and freedom in gaming, and has patched over many of the flaws it had all those years ago. I truly cannot recommend this game enough, and the people who gave this game flack in the past should give it another chance, and let it prove to you why it's worthy of the titles I've given it. And that is why, after all of this, No Man's Sky has finally achieved its dream.